Oh cool, I can go over there now. Yay. Well, this is nice. And I'm stuck. In Deutschland, eine neues... I'm only joking, I'm not doing this again. In Germany, a new high-speed railway line between Ebensfeld and Erfurt has opened, completing a 320-kilometre high-speed route between Ebensfeld and Leipzig-Halle, the section between Erfurt and Leipzig-Halle having opened in 2015. The line better connects Nuremberg with Leipzig and allows ICE services to travel between Berlin and Munich in just 3 hours and 55 minutes, a saving of over 2 hours compared to using the classic lines, although that also includes the classic lines compared to the Nuremberg-Ingolstadt line. Here is a custom map of the German high-speed railway network, similar to what I did with the French high-speed railway network. The new Ebensfeld to Leipzig-Halle line joins the list of high-speed railways in Germany, the others being Nuremberg to Ingolstadt, Frankfurt to Cologne, Hanover to Berlin, Hanover to Würzburg, and Mannheim to Stuttgart. In green is a simplified version of a set of smaller projects, mainly in the southwest of the country, mainly focused on improving journey times between Paris and Munich and between Frankfurt and Basel. Obviously, an important distinction needs to be drawn between the physical German high-speed railway network and its ICE services, similar to the distinction between LGV and TGV in France. Also, an interesting thing to note about Germany's high-speed network, and this is similar to the LGV network in France, but in contrast to the planned HS2 network in the UK, is that the high-speed railway lines are generally focused more on improving journey times as opposed to providing more capacity, and so tend to avoid going into the city centres themselves, rather just finishing in the suburbs and joining up to the existing line, whilst the HS2 tracks into Manchester, Leeds and London will run right into the city centres. Anyway, on to some train news. The December 2017 timetable change in the UK saw the start of night overground services, which at first were running between Dalston Junction and New Cross, calling all stations except for Whitechapel due to the ongoing work there. Well, as of today, this was filmed on Friday, so 2 days ago when this was uploaded, the night overground services were extended north all the way to Highbury and Islington. Electrification on the Great Western Main Line has now been completed as far as Didcot Parkway, with the first class 387 electric services calling there. Electrification to Bristol Parkway and onto Cardiff Central is set to be completed at the end of this year, with electrification as far as Chippenham on the line to Bristol Temple Meads and Newbury on the line to Exeter set to be completed in March 2019. Electrification on the two routes into Bristol Temple Meads and between Cardiff and Swansea has essentially now been cancelled as a result of the spiralling costs of the project. But it's good to see that at least some progress is being made, and we'll soon see the end of at least part of the originally planned project, and I'm sure Network Rail will be particularly relieved to put this project behind them. Not all of Network Rail's electrification projects have been complete disasters, however, with the first electric services now running between Edinburgh and Glasgow via Falkirk, currently being provided by Class 380s, though they will soon be replaced on that route by new Hitachi Class 395s. But elsewhere, Network Rail's failings continue. Now, before the timetable change itself, I was under the impression that electrification between Salford Crescent and Preston via Bolton was actually set to be complete. There was actually somebody in the comments section of the previous episode of Train News that actually told me that Network Rail had delayed the project at the last minute and was now set to be completed in May 2018, which obviously is not surprising. Network Rail have obviously been very careful to cover up their tracks, pun intended, in order to try and prevent major media controversy. Now, I wouldn't be too mad about this, except that it's now been revealed that Network Rail probably won't finish in time for May 2018, meaning that the Preston to Blackpool section will now be finished before the Manchester Preston section. The implications this has on Northern and TransPennine Express, both of whom were planning major changes in May 2018, are pretty severe. TransPennine Express's Scotland services were set to return to Bolton, and Northern was set to start running electric services between Manchester and Preston via Bolton. Plus, both franchises are using May 2018 as the starting point for providing a proper service over the Eurostar Accord, Northern with its new Manchester Airport to Bradford service, and TransPennine Express with its diversion of the Manchester Airport to Middlesbrough and Newcastle services. Whether any of this will actually now go ahead in May 2018 is still entirely up in the air. Considering that the Bolton-Chorley-Preston Line electrification was originally set to be complete in 2016, the fact that it probably now won't be finished until December 2018 is a massive embarrassment for Network Rail, and the latest in a long list of dismal failures to deliver anything they promised to do on time. Alan Williams of Modern Railways speculates that Northern could follow Virgin Trains East Coast in trying to negotiate an early termination of their franchise, what with the failure to deliver infrastructure on time, R&T industrial action, and a general slowing in passenger growth. The slowing of passenger growth, by the way, is an alarming new trend we're starting to see across the network, particularly in the southeast, unsurprisingly, and particularly in season ticket journeys. In fact, between July and September last year, there was a reported 9.4% decrease in season ticket journeys compared with between July and September 2016. Obviously, the southeast is being hit the hardest, and the R&T industrial action and GTR and its neighbours' generally poor performances are likely to blame. Anyway, in preparation for its Class 68 and MK5 stock operation, TransPennine Express have borrowed the Pretendolino set and is using it for driver training. The set actually ran a public service between Manchester Airport and Manchester Piccadilly on the 30th of December, which I would have gone to, except that A, I had no idea it was going on, and B, I was in Paris, so it would have been a bit of a trek. Speaking of MK5s, the new Caledonian sleeper carriages have arrived in Scotland, fresh off the test track in Velem, Czechia. Caledonian Sleeper recently ended the option which travellers have traditionally had for a long time to share a berth with a stranger for a cheaper price, which I think is a shame. Why remove the option for people who want to? On the 12th of January, Nottingham Station caught fire, though thankfully nobody was injured and no major damage was sustained. Carillion, a major Network Rail contractor and one of the contractors for HS2, went bankrupt and has gone into liquidation. The impact this will have on Network Rail projects in HS2 is relatively limited, however, since other contractors can absorb the damage and take up extra shares in their projects. Work at London Bridge has finally completed. In December 2017, the new concourse was fully opened to the public, and Cannon Street services are now stopping at the station once again. Thameslink services have also started running via the station, but will not be calling at May 2018, although the tight schedules mean that they will probably have to stop at a red signal and will probably end up stopping within the station, just not opening their doors, which makes sense. Preston will be getting a new tramway soon. A private company has started construction on a 3.5-mile pilot line in the Deepdale area of the city on a former disused trackbed, which they say is set to open in 2019. If successful, the line could be extended into Preston town centre onto the roads, using innovative new methods that aim to massively reduce the cost of installing tram tracks. If successful, this could be the start of an exciting new trend of small tramways within towns and smaller cities across the UK. 2 new railway lines could be added to the passenger network within the next few years, one being the Northumberland line between Newcastle and New Biggin, and the other being the Exeter to Oakhampton line. The former is owned by Network Rail but is currently freight only, whilst the latter has national rail services but only on some summer Sundays. The Exeter to Oakhampton line, by the way, is one of the very few instances of national rail services running on non-Network Rail tracks. In order for there to be a regular passenger service, both lines will need to be heavily modified, although this will be a lot cheaper than to build a new line from scratch. The Virgin Trains East Coast row continues. For those of you who don't know, the Department for Transport under Chris Grayling recently allowed Virgin Trains East Coast to terminate their franchise 3 years early in 2020. In order to avoid making a loss due to less than projected passenger growth, and obviously the failure of Network Rail to deliver infrastructure projects on time, because apparently they overbid. Well, Chris Grayling himself has now admitted that he doesn't think Virgin Trains East Coast will last even until then. And if Virgin Trains East Coast does collapse before 2020, there won't be enough time to find a replacement franchise. Meaning that, ironically, the East Coast franchise might just end up back in the hands of the public sector, which many Corbynites are celebrating as the end of privatisation, and to those people I'd say, slow down. Jumping a little to the west, the opposite has happened, and Chris Grayling has given Virgin Trains West Coast a direct award to keep running the franchise until 2020, which obviously a lot of people were slightly cheesed off about. Imagine their reaction if Virgin Stagecoach retakes the East Coast franchise on a cheaper bid. I can just imagine Andrew Adonis's Twitter exploding. Our finishing story today is Eurostar's new London to Amsterdam service. Notice how I said London to Amsterdam and not Amsterdam to London. A pilot train ran on the 20th of February, though the full public service does not begin until the 4th of April. Now supposedly you're going to be able to buy fares from London to Amsterdam for £35, which is a nice figure that makes Eurostar competitive with airlines. However, anybody going to Amsterdam with the intention of coming back might not be too enthusiastic about this service, and here's why. Because this service will be one way only until at least December 2019, because obviously passport bureaucracy. Despite knowing full well that this service was starting and it's already been delayed by over a year, the British and Dutch governments have failed to come to an agreement on passports in time, and the Netherlands Railways have failed to install permanent passport facilities in time. Since there are currently no passport facilities at Amsterdam or Rotterdam, passengers will have to go through passport control on Brussels, but here's the thing. Operationally, the return service from Amsterdam to London is set to wait at Brussels for 28 minutes, which has been deemed not long enough to get everyone off, check their passports and put them back on. Meaning that passengers will not be allowed to travel directly from Amsterdam to London. Instead, passengers from Amsterdam to London will have to board a Thalys train to get from Amsterdam to Brussels, and then board a Eurostar service from Brussels to London. The Eurostar trains, instead of running empty, will be advertised as running as far as Brussels in order to try and take some traffic away from Thalys. So basically Eurostar wants its passengers to travel to Thalys and Thalys passengers to travel by Eurostar. That makes sense. To me, what's so ludicrous about this situation is how easy it is to solve. But no, not one person in the entire management structure of Eurostar stopped for a second and thought, wait, what are we doing? I can think of at least 5 easy fixes to this problem. Fix number 1. Scrap Brexit and join the Schengen area. Easy, right? Okay, only joking. Here are 5 actual fixes to this problem. 1. Install temporary passport checking facilities at Amsterdam and Rotterdam while we wait for the permanent ones to take shape. Number 2. Adjust the timetable to give the Eurostar trains 45 minutes at Brussels. This would allow passengers to get off the train, have their passports checked and go back on. A similar system to what is operating at Lille for passengers from the south of France. Number 3. Just check the passports within that 28 minutes. Brussels has plenty of its own services to London, so if you don't allow Brussels passengers to join the train at Brussels, then surely 28 minutes should be enough time to get everyone off, check their passports and put them back on. In London, you're told to check in 30 minutes before the train departs, or 10 minutes if you're in business class, so this doesn't seem like much of a stretch. Number 4. Just check passports on board the trains like the good old days. As long as you make sure nobody's hiding in the toilets, I don't see why this isn't an acceptable short-term solution. Many Eastern European countries do this all the time. And number 5. Check passports upon arrival in London. Yes, immigration are always very fussy about having passengers cleared by UK officials before their train enters the tunnel, but I mean, this is basically what every airline does. What's more, Eurostar passengers travelling from Marne-la-Vallée-Chessy do this as well. They're checked by French officials on the French side, but aren't checked by UK officials until arrival in London, so I don't know why you can't do the same here. And I'm sure a team of dedicated professionals can come up with a better solution than me, some kid in his bedroom. But no, nobody seems to be asked to actually solve this problem, so actually the full Eurostar service to Amsterdam won't really start for another year and a half. Since most passengers don't really want to change at Brussels, they'll probably just fly. This is Modern Railways. It's a cool magazine you can get every month. I'm not sponsored yet. I will get sponsored by them someday, I hope. But, you know, that's where I get most of my information from, so I feel like I should probably tell you. Thank you all for 1,000 subscribers. The next episode will be in April. Thank you for watching and please subscribe. Our opening story is of course the rapid spreading of industrial action across the UK rail network. Last episode we discussed the ongoing driver door operation crisis currently taking place on southern, southwestern, northern, Merseyrail and Greater Anglia. Oh look, I hit 1,000 subscribers. Cool, I guess. Anyway, hello and welcome to the David Frankel Show. On the 12th of January, Nottingham Station caught fire, though sadly... On the 12th of January... Not sadly nobody was injured, thankfully nobody was injured.